everybody. We're back again with another episode of the Steel Target Paint Podcast. It's me, Jeff Jones, and my partner,
Steve Foster. What's up, Jeff? How you doing?
Good, Steve. How are you? You been at the range? I think I saw some shooting over at Griffin this weekend.
Oh, yeah, we had a good time. You know, it was one of those days I was like, you know, it's a local match. Let me see if I can improve my my classification times, and I did that on a couple stages with a couple different guns. So anytime you can set a personal best, hey, it's a good weekend. You do any shooting, Jeff?
I did. You know, I did the same thing. I grabbed the 320X5, which I had taken the dot off, and I went over to Frostproof, and I shot production and limited. And I've now, as of Wednesday's morning's classification run, I will have all 13 stages, or all 13 divisions will have all 8 stages shot.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, that was kind of a goal of mine. And, you know, I'd never shot in speed option or outer limits, and I'm kind of glad I hadn't. You know, we just talked about outer limits, but that's tough with iron sights. But I too set some personal bests, 2 in each gun. So I was pretty pleased with that. I was about, I think, 0.1% off a master score for in the limited in Smoke and Hope.
Oh,
and
that's
then,
awesome.
And then came back and was a little too frosty when it came to shooting the same gun in production. And, well, we just won't talk about that.
You know, Jeff, it's one of those things when you're at these local matches, like, all right, here's what I need to do to bump up to, in my case, for a single stack to get from A class, which I've been hanging around there for way too long, and just really haven't shot much until I got my 1911 back from the great guys, Luke at KKM, and he's got that baby dialed in. And I would say it's probably, I'd have to double check my records, but it would probably be the fastest 6-stage match I think I've ever shot.
Nice.
In single stack, yeah. So it was, I don't know, 88 seconds and some change. So that's without outer limits and speed option. I shot a personal best on 5 to go of all stages with an iron sight gun. And, you know, I was like, man, I think I got it. I got home and I did the math, and I didn't have it, Jeff. I'm so close to master, it's not even funny. I got to do the math. It may be a fraction of a second at this point.
So you're in the top 10% of the top 1 in the top 20, right? You're just like, you're owning that spot, huh?
Oh yeah. You know, and I guess going out to Area 2 here, when's that, next week? It's probably okay that I stay in this comfy A class for a little bit longer.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, you know, last week, the last podcast, you know, we talked about outer limits, and we did a little the week before we talked about the West Florida match, and we talked about the AMG Labs timer and the timer that was used in the match. And, you know, afterwards, Steve and I usually download a little bit, and he's like, you know, what do you think about getting the guy who created that timer on the podcast? And I said, well, you know, I know him. His name is Alex Gorbanoff. And he shot out of our club, and he did a lot of the initial testing. So I gave Alex a call, and Alex, say hello to the listeners.
Hi, everybody.
Well, Alex, you've just introduced yourself. Outside of doing the timers, like, do you have a real job?
I do. I have a 9-to-5 job. I'm a CG generalist. At the design and visualization company in Tampa. Basically what I do on a almost daily basis is I help you know, other individual or companies to present their product to the potential buyers before a product exists, whether it's the house or a consumer product or something else. Basically, I can take the computer drawing and turn it into the photo by making computer-generated image. Basically, I'm a 3D visualization guy.
Very cool. Very cool.
Hey, Jeff, I'm intimidated already.
Yeah, I know. I've met Alex, and it's, you know, and he when he was you know, doing this, and he'd have you run some strings, and then he'd have 2 timers out there, and he'd be checking the differentials between the timers and echoes, and it was quite impressive to see his diligence in putting this together.
Hey, Alex, I'm trying to peddle some cool hats. Can you help me out? Eh, so,
Sure.
so Alex, where did you come up with the idea to create a timer? What gap in the market did you identify?
Well, to answer the question about the idea, that's actually a very interesting story. I'll try to keep it short. Basically, what happened is, well, I started shooting around 2014. So, I started with the pistol and just immediately get sucked into this whole sport. And I was at the range practically every other day, shooting, practicing, just nothing super special, just trying to build my skills. And eventually it was a time for me to go to match. And my first match was a steel match at Wyoming Antelope Club, where Jeff also shoots. And again, I was fascinated with everything one more time, and I got sucked into steel challenge. And, I think I get some decent results there. And naturally, it was a time for me to put more practice into it. And it was a logical step to get a timer, to get my practice with the timer. So I, logged in online, tried to see what's available out there. Obviously, I saw some people use some timers at the range. I kind of already had some ideas of what I want. So what happened is I went online, did a little research, and somehow I was not able to make a decision. I just didn't commit to purchasing the timer that night. There was something missing in each of them. There was something that was not enough for me personally. So I was undecided. And next day I was thinking to myself, look, have an electric engineering degree, and I've been doing this design work for others. I can simulate stuff on a computer. I can visualize anything. And I thought, why don't make a timer for myself the way I want it to be? And I knew it's going to be not easy project, but, why not? So I tried it, and so what happened next is, I started working on a project. I started testing stuff. I started, testing some circuits, coming up with the design, the way it's going to look, start building an interface and everything. They're working on a code for the, already for the Bluetooth part and just the main code for the timer. So yeah, and what happened eventually, I showed it to some people. I started testing it at the range, and people see what it is, and everybody start, paying some attention, just checking what is it, what are you testing. So I gave it to some people to give it a spin at home, and I had tremendously awesome feedback. Everybody loved it. And I thought to myself again, it is a really awesome product. So why don't I share it with the others? Of course, it's going to, involve some even more work and even harder work. But, I was ready for it. So I gave it extra push, did some more tests, got some more feedback, got some more testing again, and essentially ended up with the Commander on the market. So basically, it's a one-man operation. I was an electric engineer, the code developer, the web designer, the marketing specialist. Basically, everything in this project is one-man product.
That's amazing. We talked a little bit about your timer on the last podcast, maybe a little bit on the podcast prior as well, coming out of the West Florida Steel Challenge Championship. And there are so many things about the timer that are really, really cool. And I was telling Jeff, I think, Alex, where you hit it out of the park is really the Bluetooth upload from the timer to the tablet directly to Practice Score. I think that's helped a lot just from the standpoint of accuracy and the speed. And so the person scoring the hits or making sure that are hits on target, they can, pay attention to what's going on instead of, fumbling around and, actually assist the RO. So I think that option is awesome. I'm sorry, I'm getting carried away because it's just, the sensitivity settings that you have, the loudness of the beeps, I think are absolutely fantastic. There's 3 different settings there. Oh man, it's so what do you think is the coolest option that you've programmed into the timer itself?
Well, I like all of them, honestly. I was very meticulous about every single thing that you see in a timer. It started with just the physical, look of it, the design. When I designed the plastic case for it, I ran it through simulations in a computer. I dropped it from some height. I measured the plastic deformation. I wanted to be strong enough. So I paid attention, in that regard. Then when I designed menu, I wanted to make it ergonomic and simple to operate, just pretty much one-hand operation. So I'm very proud of the easiness of the menu that I was able to achieve. So you can pretty much, and I think Jeff will agree, since I have a timer, that it can be operated with one hand. And the Bluetooth connectivity with Practice Core and some other apps eventually when they come to the market is a cool feature. Yeah, it just basically provides extra help, extra confidence to the scorekeeper during the match. And, later on when you practice, you can have some log. You can log your performance at the range, study it at home. The sound sensing unit is the work of art, I think. I mean, it's not something you see by looking at the timer, but I did put a lot of thought into it. And probably if I had to pick, that would be my number one design element of the timer that I'm proud of, because when you design sound sensing unit, you basically, I tried not to follow any of existing, there's many circuits in the books that can help you to design this or that. I threw all of that out of the window, figuratively speaking, and just tried to come up with something from scratch. I wanted to, let me try to find other words. Using just other timers that are available on the market, example, you've probably seen when you crank sensitivity too high, it starts picking up everything. You can just basically start talking and it will pick up your speech. You crank it enough to sense 22.
Especially me, right, Steve? It's picking me up.
Hey, Alex, I'm not sure if you're aware of this or not, but I do have a home range here in Georgia. I'm not sure if Jeff told you that or not.
I do know. I do know. I am very jealous as well. So.
Well, I've got a home range out back, and I've got another. We don't get into product shaming here, but another brand timer. I had the sensitivity up shooting rimfire rifle iron. I since put a comp on the end of that gun, but there was like a bird chirping or something in the back, and it actually picked it up, and so I couldn't find that sweet spot. So it's very interesting. I'm really into what you're talking about, because I got a significant appreciation for it.
Awesome. Well, then just so you know, I put extreme amount of attention to how that thing works. So basically the problem with those timers, and again, I can be wrong because I don't know how all of them do their thing inside, but I have a feeling I do know how they do it. And the problem is in the hardware. You make microphone too sensitive, and here's the result. It's too sensitive for everything. So I process the sound wave basically in hardware and in software, and then in software one more time. So basically when timer hears the shot, it basically passes it, through the hardware into the software. Software looks at it and like, okay, this is the shot. Then it goes to second stage, and the second stage pretty much inside goes, okay, it is indeed a shot. And that is why if you crank it too high, it still makes sense all of the other things, but it ignores them. It only understands the pistol shots. And that's why even there's no complete 100% immunity to some false shots when sensitivity is too high. I think Commander is doing the really, really good job at filtering all of that stuff. And I brought the oscilloscope to the pretty much every range I go to study the acoustic performance of everything. And that's why shooting at the Wyoming Antelope Club was really helpful, because they have really unique setup. that actually amplifies the sound. So I knew if I can figure out how to sense shots over there at high sensitivity without picking up everything else, the timer will work everywhere else. Unique features, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Well,
unique
let me wrap it up real quick. So yeah, so sound sensing union is my favorite. I think unique feature of the timer, the Bluetooth connectivity and the AAA batteries. I mean, I sometimes using 9-volt, sometimes timers using rechargeables, and I wasn't happy with that. So that's why I thought, why don't we use just the regular AAA batteries to get the best out of the battery performance? And I was able to outperform some of the timers, I don't know, by 5 times, and some of them even by 8 or 10 times. I have reports that people started using Commander back in November, and then they just changed the battery about a month ago. So that's a battery performance. I'm very proud of that as well. I tested pretty much every integrated circuit out there that regulates voltage, and picked the best one. So, it was a lot of work, but in the end, it's another feature that I'm very proud of.
I want to talk a little bit about the battery life. I saw on your website, which is amg-lab.com, it says up to 17 days of continuous match use on a single set of regular batteries. That blows my mind. But that's one of the things that I got a confession, Jeff, I got to share with you.
Okay.
So I do some training at the home range. Hey, Alex, did I tell you? Never mind. That's water under the bridge.
Yeah, Alex built a timer. Steve built a range.
Hey, I'm more impressed with the timer. I'm just telling you, Jeff. So the Tandem Cross Supervan Mike Baker and his wife Elsie came over. I don't know, it's probably been a month or so ago, and they brought over one of these cool timers. I think it was right before your match, Jeff.
Okay.
And so, because my other timer, again, not brand shaming, it doesn't seem to hold a charge all that long. And I've got an earlier generation of that same timer, and it seems to be a workhorse. But anyway, so Mike brought up this timer and said, man, you got to check this out, and looked at the volume. I mean, it was pretty easy to navigate through, and I love the crisp beep tone of it. And then after I saw what happened at the Wyoming Antelope Club, where it was the Bluetooth connectivity, I'm like, man, this thing is awesome. And so I kindly said to Mike, hey, Mike, can I borrow your timer just a little bit? he's like, what do you mean? I just want to test out its features and this and that. I guess at some point I got to give it back, but it's it's downstairs in my range bag. Shh, don't tell him. Maybe he won't listen to the podcast and remember. But no, it's a great training tool. You did mention something, Alex, a little bit ago that maybe this is a spoiler alert. You talked a little bit about some development of some apps or some programs that you're working with, training. Tell me a little bit more, or can you not tell us any more than that?
Well, I can sure talk a little bit more about it. Basically, currently, as of right now, the Practice Core is number one app that work with the Commander. And however, Eugene, the developer from Practice Core, he is working on another app that will be tailored more towards just individual shooters who just want to go to range and shoot some drills, have some recording of strings, go home, study, analyze, maybe take a picture of some targets, and basically it will, just like I said, it would be a training app. Now I know he's very, very close to the completing this app. Obviously, I don't know when it's going to be released exactly. It's up to him. If he listens to this podcast, maybe he can, make a post and give some more details. But I know it's going to be an awesome app, and it's going to come out relatively soon, I think. Now, the other feature of the Commander is that the Bluetooth connectivity is the code to access it is free. Anybody who is serious about making their own app can email to AMG Lab, basically send an email to info@amg-lab.com, and we can talk about sharing the API so the, whoever wants to make their own app will get the instruction how to connect to the Bluetooth on a timer. So there's no limitations, no anything. It's all free. And currently there are a few other people who are trying to make an app. I honestly don't know what's it going to be, what's going to look like. I know I've provided them with the API, and they just, thinking about it a little bit. And hopefully we're going to see their product eventually as well.
Well, Alex, I want to go back to a couple things here. And I've had the timer for a while. And the first thing I want to point out, and we've talked about the sensitivity, but a lot of guys, a lot of timers, they'll have a double part time. So you get like a delayed beep, and then you get a part-time beep, testing your draw. The thing that I found with your timer is that I could set it up, out in front of me, hit it, get into my ready position, beeper would go off. I could draw, and I could actually, because the gun would be racked, of course, the magazine would be empty or not even in, and the chamber would be empty, but it would pick up the click of the trigger and the hammer falling. And the beautiful thing about that is it's no longer did I beat the par time, but you actually get what your draw time actually was. And I love that for, when I started working on draws and they were, 2 seconds, and then suddenly, after some training, I knew I was down to 1.5 seconds or 1.35 seconds. And so that to me was a huge training benefit. But, you guys have danced around a little bit, and I've been waiting for somebody to say it, and they haven't said it. I believe, the timer and the pad working together make a match run smooth. It ran great at the West Florida Steel Challenge Championships. The second RO on the pad just hits a button, it pulls the times in. But what it's also pulling in are the splits. And I did a quick review once I got mine, and its integration with Practice Score. And I think some other people have figured this out. The combination of your timer and Practice Score is no longer just a match scoring system. It is a practice tool, because if you can get that data out in Practice Score Competitor, and for those that have used it, when you go in and you look at, say, your division, let's, for sake of argument, you say RFPO, and you shot 6 divisions, and you see a graph up top. Well, if you use the AMG Labs timer and you press any one of those bar graphs for the stages that are there, a screen pops up, and you're actually getting your draw and each one of your splits and the number of shots that you took. So suddenly now, at the end of the match, you go, oh, well, Steve is a good example. He knows how many extra shots he carried into his score. But I don't keep track of that. But now I can go back and look at that stuff. Or I could go back and look and say, wow, my draw was consistent across all those. Or, oh, my draw was all over the place. So I've really got to work on that stage, that draw. And to me, the combination of your timer and Practice Score has turned that not to just, like I said, a match management scoring, but an actual training device. Because it's capturing all this data. And that's what I love about it. And to me, one of the other hidden features, and let's face it, for those that have been to the WAC, we do have some echo problems. There were a couple times where extra shots were recorded. And, like many timers, you have the ability to go back, and it was, when we know, let's face it, if you shoot at 1 point, or let's just for sake of argument, a 2-second smoke and hope, and then you go to give the time and it says 3.4 seconds, you picked up a shot. The timer was set too sensitive. So instead of saying you need to shoot that string over again, in that case, I believe it's legal to back it up and go take what the fifth shot was. But what you also have in that timer, which I think is another amazing thing, is you have a record of the last 3 strings and all their splits in a little spreadsheety type window. So you can actually, you say, wow, that string didn't feel that fast, but you could say, well, it was faster because I was, 0.1 faster on the draw, and my split was 0.05 faster there, and you can start to see where are you picking up the speed or where are you losing speed. I've used it a lot to realize that I've got to pick up my pace in how I shoot pendulum, and that I shoot at 3-4-1-2 stop, and I've got to snap over to 1, or I'm spending a lot of time. So that's my personal top 3 on what this timer does.
And I totally agree. I mean, I couldn't have said it better. So yeah, and just so everybody knows, everything that you see in the timer, just like Jeff mentioned, it wasn't just put there, out of random. There is a reason behind everything. When you shoot drills, like a build drill or some other fast drills, and you're interested to look at your shots side by side immediately right there on the spot. So there's your little spreadsheet. When you come home from a steel match, how else would you know what was your draw time? You know what your draw time is when you dry fire or when you live fire during the practice, but during the match, you just don't have time to ask, a row, what is my draw time? And he may not tell you, but I want people to go home and be able to, to study that, to look, and that's where, Practice Score does a tremendously awesome job of giving you all these charts to check your, string side by side. And I actually have a video of Steve shooting. I don't remember what particular stage was it at the last match, West Florida match, but I do have him shooting PCC, and I have a screen grab from Practice Score showing those charts. If you're interested, I can just email it to you later. Maybe you can post it out if you're interested. If not, we'll edit it out. Cut.
Hang on, was it a good one?
It was a good one. I mean, I like it. It was a good one. It was a clean one.
Well, yeah, I shot my PCC well. I think I shot the fastest time in the match with my PCC. So hopefully you got a good one there, Alex.
Well, yeah. The one thing I was gonna point out too, and there's a couple of things. These timers are great, and quite frankly, the on button's easy. You've got go on the button to start it. You've got arrow buttons. There's an M for the menu button. It's pretty straightforward, but there's a couple of hidden features that I don't know a lot of people know about, and I'm talking about the double button press when you're turning it on. Can you just give our listeners a really quick, while it's not intuitive, what those are and the benefits behind those when you press those buttons?
Oh, okay. I know what you're talking about. You're talking about turning timer on while holding some other button?
That is correct.
Okay. So yes, it is in a user manual, closer toward the last couple pages, but yes, you're right. Some people just don't know about those features until they read user manual, and they don't read it right away. So
it's like me, Alex. My bad.
Yeah.
I'll put it on Mike. He didn't drop off the manual with it, so I'm intrigued what you're gonna say.
So yeah. So basically, if you have timer off, and if you press M, and while holding M, you turn timer on, you're going to go into advanced menu. And in that menu, let me see if I can find the timer around so I can, unfortunately, don't have any timers within the reach. So let me go off my memory.
I've actually got it here. I've got it here, Alex, I believe. You've got, the first option is a self beep.
Okay, so self beep is a feature. You know how sometimes the beep let's say if you have your sensitivity too high, let's say 10 or 9, something really, really high, and your beep volume is all the way up to number 3, and if you put the timer close to the shooter's head, he has some ear protection, some plastic ear protection, ear muffs, and if you beep the timer, obviously the sound of the beep may bounce off back into the microphone, and the timer may pick up itself thinking it's a shot. And that's a known feature for some other timers. This is just how it works. And if you have this feature enabled in that menu, then timer is going to be insensitive to the shot during the beep. However, if you enable this feature, then it is going to be sensitive to the shot during the beep at the sensitivity 7 or lower. So because, I know some people may usually what's somebody's draw time, let's say 0.5, 0.6, 0.7 second and up. So obviously if you have a self-beep feature disabled, then it's okay. You will never fire a shot faster than 0.3 second, which is the length of the beep. But some PCC shooters or somebody really, really fast eventually may pull out the first shot faster than 0.3 seconds. Or maybe they want to practice their reaction time, how soon they pull the trigger when the beep sound. So in this case, you may disable this feature, and if your sensitivity of 7 or lower, then you'll be able to pick up the shot under 0.3 seconds, if that makes sense what I'm trying to okay.
It does. And there's a bunch of other features here, and if they're in they're in the manual, because Steve, I got one so early that the manual wasn't done yet. So
no, it's fine. Just in a couple of words, there's another feature that basically the shot string length is by default 5 minutes. If you don't fire any shot in 5 minutes, timer is gonna stop. You notice when you push go, timer beeps and listens for the shots. There's a little scan line going up and down. That indicates the timer is listening for the shots right now. After 5 minutes expires, it stops listening for the shots. And some matches may have stages longer than 5 minutes. And in this case, you can change this time from 5 minutes to 10 minutes, basically a cutoff time when timer stops listening for the shots. There's also
Can I set it to like 1.5 seconds, and it's just like any shots after 1.5 seconds, it just says, don't worry about those.
That's way too fast. I'll have to make a special version of a software for you. So yeah,
I'll send you my credit card.
Yeah, and so what else is there?
I think the other one that I find to be helpful, and you kind of get an idea of your battery life, is the battery volts. You actually are showing the voltage coming through the batteries, and I forget the number you gave me. I think you said if it gets below 1.5 volts, is that correct, or is it more than that?
Actually, no, and thank you for mentioning that. I'm glad you mentioned that, because that gives me opportunity to put this information out there. Basically, we know that the batteries can be of different chemistries. There's lithium batteries. There's nickel metal hydride. There's alkaline. Something else I don't even remember what they called. And they all have a different cutoff voltages. So and their discharge curve is not linear. So let's say if you have regular alkaline batteries, just brand new off the store, you put it into device, its voltage is going to be 1.6 volts. Then immediately it's going to drop down to 1.5 and pretty much stays 1.5 volt throughout the life of the battery and starts dropping only at the end. So when the battery voltage goes below 1 volt, then the battery is dead. Anywhere in between, it's impossible to say what is your battery state is, what's the percentage of the discharge. So that's why I put the battery voltage in there, and it really depends on the battery chemistry, but the baseline is 4 volt. So when somebody needs to check how their batteries are doing, turn the timer on while holding M button and look at the battery voltage. If it's around 4, which that means the battery is close to the discharge. You can still work with the timer just fine, and it'll probably go okay throughout the match. But keep in mind, if it's around 4, maybe it's time to think about changing the batteries. Anything above is totally fine, and it may go well below 4, but 4 is your baseline.
Well, that's a nice touch, especially, you know, when you're a match director, a range master running a match, you know, to just go through and check your timers. And, you know, if you're down in that low end of the range, just replace them there so you know you're not going to have a problem during the match. So
Yeah.
I think that's, you know, that's a really, I think, you know, there's again, we're not going to product shame other timers, and there are some that have a little battery gauge on it, but, you know, what does that mean? And I've seen them where it takes forever to get down, and then they go real fast, and then other ones don't have any kind of gauge. So I mean, this is again just one of the innovative features that alone is nice, but when you put it all together in the package you put together, it's quite amazing.
Yeah, and you notice with most of the timers, the battery gauges, they are inaccurate. They either showing the battery all the way up, and then out of nowhere it just jumps to, let's say, 25%, and then just die another 5 minutes. Can be a little bit different numbers, but it's just not as accurate as the battery in our smartphones or laptops or something like that. So because it's just hard to tell where your battery is in a shot timer. So instead of that, instead of making a guess and confuse my customers, you know, what's going on inside the battery, I just gave them a voltage and check the voltage. If it's 4 or above, you're good. And if it's 4 or below 4, time to think about changing batteries. And I put thoughts even in that. I try to make it so that if your battery is low and you don't have batteries around you, but you know you have to run somebody, you need to have timers to be working. So it's not gonna die, in the next 5 or 10 minutes. Change your beep volume to 2, and even though the batteries is almost close to complete discharge, you will be able to go through your match just fine. Just back up the volume 1 step and you're good. This is just like emergency solution for someone who don't have batteries, but you need to finish your match.
You know what's fun? You know what's funny about all this is that I'm sitting here thinking like, man, it's just not me, because my current timer that I use outside of yours that's been on loan is my battery life will be at 100%, and then I literally use it for like 5 strings of fire, and it goes down to 50%, and it stays there for a little period of time, and then it just turns off. It's like, what happened with that, fellas? I mean, who programmed that? So it's pretty.
Yeah, and that will
interesting.
change a lot with the temperature, with your ambient temperature.
Sure, yep.
If you do it at below 0, it will be even worse than that. So
yeah.
So Steve, there's another part that we passed over, and I want to point this out, because this is, again, it's another great tool. It's another great feature that makes this timer more of a training tool. And if you talk about the things when you hit the menu button, you know, you've got the sensitivity, the start type, which is instant or delayed, fixed or random. You've got 3 different par times you can set. You've got the echo delay, which comes in handy at the whack, and the beep volume. But here's to me is the innovative feature. All those settings, he has 5 different programmable preset programs for those 5 settings. So for me, my number 1 setting is my standard. When you push the button, it goes beep. It records the time. It's at 7, and that's a regular match setting. But when I go to 2, well, that's my part-time setting. So when I'm drawing at the range, I've got my part-time set for whatever time, for whatever gun I'm doing, and it's set for that. But my stage, my preset number 3 is actually my draw practice at home, my dry fire, and the sensitivity is 10. And I don't have to keep changing all of these things each time I want to do a certain thing. I just go to a different preset program. And
that's cool.
It's huge. And I want to point out too, since you've got the super fan Mike Baker's timer, that possession is 9/10 of the law?
Man, I hope he skips this podcast.
Well, Alex, I do have one question, and it's kind of put you on the spot a little bit here, but you know, you did all the hardware, you did all the software. Is there anything that you would, you know, that is do you have any ideas coming down the range? Are you going to change the firmware, change the software, or are you pretty happy with the way that this is set up and it's running right now?
I am, obviously, there's room for improvement in anything. So that is just, you know, that's just the way it is.
Right.
With Commander, I am happy with everything. That's why I was not rushing to the market until I test everything. Every single menu, worked out every bug that I see in the software or the hardware. So what is in a Commander right now, that's what it's going to be, and to keep things easy and just uniform. And just avoid all this, you know, updates and everything. I want people, when they go to the range, to focus on the shooting and pick up a timer, and I want it to be a timer. I want to be a tool to become a better shooter, just to train more efficiently, then get your times into the tablet or a smartphone, study them later, things like that. So it's kept as simple as possible, and I will try to not change anything. Now, obviously, later down the road, there's going to be some other products, you know, in a year or 2 years, I don't know. I want to say that every feedback that I have, I do listen to all of it. Now, I can promise that everything that people request will end up in a product. However, I want everybody to know that I'm listening very attentively, writing everything down, and, you know, basically, yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. Every feedback that I have is noted.
Excellent.
For the future products.
Alex, I got a couple of quick questions for you here. And so if people want to go out and order one, where's the best way to go? Is it amg-lab.com to order one? Is that the best way to get in touch with you?
Yes, correct. Currently, the best way and pretty much the only way to order timer is to go to www.amg-lab.com and place a pre-order. So it takes some time for me to get the parts and components and put together a timer for every order. They build pretty much just like a custom gun or custom watch. I build them myself, and you know, it takes time. So yeah, place an order online, and anywhere from 30 to 60 days, your order will be fulfilled. Eventually, of course, things are picking up speed, and that time will get shorter and shorter, and I'm hoping eventually to have a stock of timers be ready to be shipped immediately upon order placement.
Gotcha. All right. Well, how about this? Can we do this where I pay with Jeff's credit card and you ship it to my house? Will that work? Is that okay?
Absolutely. You should get like 2 or 3.
I got my new card today. You could be the first charge on the card. That would be beautiful. All right. Well, I have a completely unrelated question, Alex. Okay. And,
yes.
Your nationality is Russian.
Ukraine.
Right?
Ukraine. No,
okay.
I'm Ukrainian. Yes.
Ukrainian. Okay. And do you speak the native tongue?
Ukrainian language? Absolutely.
Yes. Okay. So I want you to tell, even though in the United States Practical Shooting Association and the Steel Challenge Shooting Association, the standard for all the commands is English, I want you to say, "Are you ready? Stand by," in Ukrainian.
Oh my goodness! I have to disappoint you. I don't even know how to say it in Ukrainian.
Alex, I got one better. You ready? Steve has a home.
Ready?
Just say Steve has a home range, Jeff.
Okay.
Can you say that for me? That'd be great. I'll
Yes.
save it.
Oh, you mean in Ukraine?
Oh yeah.
Oh, that is hard. I'm at the point where I forgot my my language, and I haven't learned English yet, so I'm kind of in between. Is it something I can post on a Facebook later?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, man.
Absolutely, Alex. That's the best idea I've ever heard.
You got to put it on the Steel Target Paint podcast page. That would be amazing. That would be hilarious.
I'll definitely do that. I don't know. Somehow my brain is not working right now. I'm in the English mode. It's not that easy for me to speak anymore.
I have a feeling that if you can come up with Steve has a home range, Jeff, that's going to be our new intro to all the podcasts.
Oh, at least for
Ukrainian.
12 months. Yeah.
It's like, you go to amusement park, most of them, and somewhere close to the entrance, they have welcome written in every possible language.
Right.
So you may have the same thing. Steve has a home range in like 20 different languages.
Oh,
you can make a shirt. You should make a shirt like that.
Oh, even better. I'm gonna have decals, Jeff.
Oh,
I'm gonna put one on the back of your kidnap van. It'll be awesome.
Absolutely. Yep. What is that? That's Steve has a home range in 20 different languages.
Oh my
awesome.
goodness. Oh,
that's awesome. Well, Alex, I know there's a lot of people out there using the timer, a lot of people waiting on the timer, and I think a lot of people are going to order the timer. It is what I like to say is fan double-tastic. It's again, this is one of those products that was built by a shooter for shooters, and it shows. And so I just want to say congratulations.
Well, thank you very much, and I definitely appreciate all the orders and all the help and all the feedback people provided. Without it, that would just not be possible, and that's the goal. I will do my best to give people the best I can.
Yeah, congratulations, Alex. You're an inspiration to a lot of entrepreneurs out there. You find a need and you fill it, and it's absolutely been amazing listening and talking with you here for the last 45 minutes or so. There's a lot of people that are out there thinking, "Oh, what if I did this? What if I did that?" And Alex is a real life story of get off your keister and get out there and identify a need and fill it. So, congratulations, Alex, and thank you so much for spending some time of your evening with us here on the podcast. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Steve. And
you're very welcome.
Thanks for having me on this podcast.
All right. Hey, Steve, why don't you give out that coupon code for rangestore.net that we have?
Yeah, go out to rangestore.net and use coupon code STPodcast10 for 10% off your order on rangestore.net.
Yeah, get yourself one of them new range boxes. I actually picked up, we had a person at the range didn't pick up their coupon for $50 at rangestore.net. So I went and I ordered 3 range boxes, and I'm going to randomly give them away. This is not a money-making organization, people. But I'm gonna work out something. I'm gonna talk to Steve, and we're gonna give them away, and I don't know, we might even throw some swag inside of them and have some fun with it. So keep an eye out for that, people. All right, everybody, good night. Thanks for listening. Hope you enjoyed it. Alex, again, thank you. Steve, my good friend, it's always good talking with you.
Great talking with you, Jeff.
One shot, one steal.